Hey guys, how's it going? So today I want to share with you this timeline that I just created. I've been seeing a ton of videos out there teaching people how to get into web design and development and how to do it as their kind of side hustle. It really inspired me to figure out, what if I was going from knowing absolutely nothing to being able to charge, make money, and take on my first client in just 1 month. So I created this timeline for someone who has a day job and only has 1 to maybe 4 hours at most every single night to kind of dedicate to this. All right, here we are in our sample timeline for our 1 month sprint, going from knowing absolutely nothing through to taking on our very first client. Let's take a look at what we have here. So it's split up into these 4 different buckets here of Webflow, design, branding, and business. Let's take a look at each of them. So Webflow is going to be our development platform of choice. This is how we'll be building our websites. It's okay if you totally have never heard of Webflow or don't know anything about it. However, I chose Webflow because it is a low-code or no-code solution for building websites, which means you don't have to learn how to code to do all of this. So that definitely will speed things up for us so that we can end this month being confident that we're able to build a website. It's literally just point and click. It's super intuitive. There's tons of great materials and resources out there. We also have design as a section. So this is where all of the graphic design stuff will come about. I'm using Figma here because I think Figma is one of the easiest and fastest softwares to pick up when you're getting into graphic design and building websites. Branding relates to what your own freelance business, the brand, looks like. So if you have a logo, what would that logo look like? What does your portfolio look like? All that good stuff will get figured out within this bucket. The last one is business. So these are all the admin things that you need to think about before you take on your first client. So this is everything from your contracts, how you're going to go about invoicing, what project management system or software are you going to be using. All that good stuff will get figured out in this bucket. All right, so let's dive into each of these. So yeah, I'm choosing Webflow because it's a low-code platform. You obviously don't need to know how to code or anything like that. Everything's kind of point and click. So the learning curve is really, really small. And on top of that, they also have these Webflow University classes where there's tons and tons of resources that you can pretty much watch. And so for this first week, I'm kind of recommending getting into that crash course, which they say will take about 5 hours, but I think you only really need 3 hours, 4 hours to get a handle on the platform itself. Going into the second week, I have this thing called clonable hacking in Webflow. If you're not familiar, you're able to kind of open up other people's Webflow projects to see how they build certain things. So this is a great learning tool because it's pretty hands-on. You can kind of deconstruct and play around and just generally just hack an existing website so that you can kind of break it, improve on it, like do all sorts of cool things. So I think this is an extremely, extremely important part of learning how to build websites, is actually doing things, right? So the second week is totally dedicated to this clonable task here. Going from Wednesday to Friday, that's when you're actually building your first landing page. So my timeline here has landing page 1, 2, and 3. At the end of the month, if we want to start finding clients, start working with clients, we obviously need to prove to them that we're able to build websites. So we need some test projects. I've budgeted here, I think that we can do 3 single page websites, totally different from each other, in just 1 month, fully built out on Webflow. And essentially, after kind of that second week, the third and fourth week will all just be about kind of, building out these landing pages. Okay, now let's look at design. So this design bucket here has a Figma crash course. Figma will be the weapon of choice for design during the sprint. And then the same way that we're developing 3 single page landing pages, of course, we have to design those. So we have a task for each of the landing page here. And how I've broken this out is similar to Webflow, where the first week is kind of this crash course period. For Figma, it's basically the same thing. Now, it's definitely doable to stack these 2 things on top of each other because of the fact that Figma is a pretty intuitive and really simple app that you really only need 1, maybe 3 hours at the very most to get familiar with it. Piling that on top of the Webflow crash course is definitely doable in my opinion. So coming into the second week, you're going to be still balancing all of the Webflow tasks, but then also beginning landing page 1 comp design right on Monday and Tuesday here. So you got 2 days, design something in Figma, just 1 page for your very first landing page. And then after you finish designing that, by Wednesday, you begin development in Webflow. So that's why it's kind of ordered in this way. After you're designing the first landing page comp, you go right into designing your second landing page comp. Now, because you're managing clonable hacking, you're doing some landing page development, the landing page comp for the second landing page is going to be 3 days instead of the 2 that you have here. This should give you more than enough time to balance things out and be able to complete the second landing page. After that, we go into developing that landing page that you just made, designing the last and third landing page here. While you don't have clonable hacking anymore up here, landing page 3, we want that to be a little bit more pushing the boundaries, a little bit more experimental, really a showstopper. So adding that extra day, I think will be really good. And the emphasis here would be, so if you're spending 2 hours on landing page 2, you also want to make sure you're spending 2 hours a day on landing page 3 as an example, or 1 hour and 1 hour. Again, it depends on your availability. But as far as the level of effort, I would say put equal amounts of effort here. Maybe a little bit more towards Webflow, just because again, it's gonna be the more technical component. But ideally, you know, you'd spend a good amount of time really fine-tuning the design for landing page 3. After that, we go into development of landing page 3 up here, and there's no other tasks in design for now down here. All right, so here we have the third bucket, which is branding. We have freelance visual identity as a task here, reference gathering, concepts, and then portfolio website. Now, what do all of these things mean? Freelance visual identity has to do with whether or not you're going to have a logo for yourself. What is the general aesthetic of your brand as a freelancer? It's just a way for us to figure out what our website, our portfolio is really going to look like. You can always refine this stuff later on, but you know, we want to end this month to have our own personal website and some examples on it, which is what we're working on in the design and Webflow buckets above. So the first week, it's pretty low effort here of just reference gathering. So all that is you're just going online, looking at other freelancers, seeing what their portfolios look like. If they have logos, what does that look like? So just really exposing yourself to other freelancers that you might be either competing with or that you're aspiring to become. So this is that first week. Because you already have Webflow crash course, as well as the Figma crash course, the reference gathering part of this really should just be, you know, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, probably not even an hour per night, or, you know, you just select maybe 2 or 3 days within the first week. As long as you're just spending a little bit of time just exposing yourself out there to designs, to other freelancers, that's really all that matters there. And then you get into the second week where you're beginning to concept what your portfolio might look like. Now, because your week is totally packed, so I would say maybe spend, you know, up to 3 hours this second week, again, pulling final references and maybe beginning to start sketching what your portfolio can look like. Coming into the third and even the final week, it's all about your portfolio here. You can have it just be 1 page or multiple pages if you want a dedicated about page or something like that. You can certainly do that. But the goal here is to, again, focus on the sample work, because that's the thing that's gonna get judged the most. The third and the fourth week is really, again, just getting that portfolio up and running so that it's pretty presentable and that it houses the great landing pages that you're making here. All right, the final bucket is business. Okay, so a lot of people forget about this piece. And so I wanted to include this in the timeline and make sure that we're budgeting appropriately and keeping in mind that we need to set up the foundations for our freelance business. So the very first thing that, you know, it would make sense to do is decide on what email you need to use, because you're gonna have to sign up for Webflow, you're gonna have to sign up for Figma, as well as how are you gonna do project management. So you'd wanna dedicate, you know, up to an hour just even researching and trying some things out. So there's not much in business up until pretty much the final week, the final stretch. Now, you can certainly move this around, but again, our focus needs to be on landing page comp design and the landing page development, right? So most of our hours at night is going to fall on those types of tasks. At the very end, when we're wrapping up our portfolio, we can spend some last minute things like figuring out how we're gonna do our invoicing. Will it be through PayPal? Is it gonna be Venmo? Regardless, you wanna set aside money for taxes. You also wanna spend some time looking online for some boilerplate contracts. The last bits here is the Upwork setup and LinkedIn and social, as I have here. Where you're most likely to get your first client is just through your family, your friends, just your close personal networks. So you wanna make sure that you broadcast out into LinkedIn and your personal social profiles that you are in fact becoming a web designer and developer, and you're doing this on the side and you're open for business essentially. You'd want to start posting maybe before you even launch your portfolio. It would be great to start promoting yourself and letting people know that you're going to be launching your own portfolio, and it's gonna have all of the web design work that you've been working on, and you're open for business essentially. Okay, so that's my super fast 1 month schedule, going from knowing absolutely nothing all the way to being able to take on your first project. If I was to do this, this is what I would do. I hope you find some value in this. Like and subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one.